Church of Christ, and just want to thank you for being a part of this worship time. Whether you're watching my live stream or watching it later, welcome, and hope that you will join us in person whenever you have the opportunity.
Hi, I'm Susanna Hollinsett, the children's minister here at Oliver Creek. I want to share with you what you can expect during today's worship service. We will sing songs together, we'll pray together, we'll take time to hear a message from God's Word, and then we'll take time to eat the Lord's Supper and remember Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. All of this is for the goal and purpose of connecting with God and with each other.
We're gathered around three core principles that really make up our mission here. The first is to glorify God, and we do that through our worship and also by the ways that we live our lives Monday through Saturday. We're also committed to loving one another by the ways that we speak, by the ways that we're present in the highs and lows, by the ways that we share our homes with one another. And we're committed to blessing the world. So we don't want to keep the love and power and grace of Jesus to ourselves, but we want it to spill out from us into our community, into the city, and all across the world.
Hi, I'm Seth Turner, one of the ministers here at Oliver Creek. We want to welcome you to our live stream this morning, but we also want you to know that we believe here at Oliver Creek that we're not just a church that happens on Sunday, but a community of believers that are being formed by Jesus Sunday to Saturday. From our youngest members to our oldest, we want to be a church that's happening every day and in every single moment. One way you can learn more about us is to go to olivercreek.org, where you can find more about our ministries, our values, our beliefs, our leadership, and so many other things. And also, we want to make sure we mention this morning to like, comment, and share this video, because you never know who may be encountering the message and good news of Jesus for the first time.
Hello, I'm Greg York. I'm one of the ministers here at the Oliver Creek Church of Christ, and just want to thank you for being a part of this worship time. Whether you're watching my live stream or watching it later, welcome, and hope that you will join us in person whenever you have the opportunity.
Hi, I'm Susanna Hollinsett, the children's minister here at Oliver Creek. I want to share with you what you can expect during today's worship service. We will sing songs together, we'll pray together, we'll take time to hear a message from God's Word, and then we'll take time to eat the Lord's Supper and remember Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. All of this is for the goal and purpose of connecting with God and with each other.
We're gathered around three core principles that really make up our mission here. The first is to glorify God, and we do that through our worship and also by the ways that we live our lives Monday through Saturday. We're also committed to loving one another by the ways that we speak, by the ways that we're present in the highs and lows, by the ways that we share our homes with one another. And we're committed to blessing the world. So we don't want to keep the love and power and grace of Jesus to ourselves, but we want it to spill out from us into our community, into the city, and all across the world.
Hi, I'm Seth Turner, one of the ministers here at Oliver Creek. We want to welcome you to our live stream this morning, but we also want you to know that we believe here at Oliver Creek that we're not just a church that happens on Sunday, but a community of believers that are being formed by Jesus Sunday to Saturday. From our youngest members to our oldest, we want to be a church that's happening every day and in every single moment. One way you can learn more about us is to go to olivercreek.org, where you can find more about our ministries, our values, our beliefs, our leadership, and so many other things. And
good morning, everyone. I see by the clock that it is time to begin our Bible class. We'll invite you to come in and we'll get started here. Dennis will be teaching our class today, but I'm going to do a little introduction and a follow-up from last Sunday of the introduction class that I gave last Sunday. I see some folks still coming in. I'll let them come in and get settled. So let's begin our class with a prayer. There's still some people coming in. Let me let them get in here. Hey, Judy, it's good to see you. How you feeling? Getting better and better. Yes, the physical therapist telling you're walking too fast? That sounds like good news to me. Yeah. Oh, well, we're glad that you're getting over that surgery and back with us. Oh, they didn't do surgery. That's right, they didn't. They had to do something else. We have some guests with us. This is the Eric family, and their daughter, Caitlin, is graduating from high school. Granddaughter, that's what I meant to say, granddaughter, yeah. Okay, let's begin with a prayer together. Our dear Father in heaven, we're so grateful for today and our abilities to get up and get moving, and so glad to see Judy able to do that and be with us again in worship. And we thank you for Dwayne taking such loving care of her while she's been down for a long time from her broken leg, and thank you that she's doing better. We thank you for all our graduates who are graduating this year, and we pray that as they leave high school and enter into a new chapter of their life, that they will always keep you in their hearts, their actions, their lives, and stay faithful to you. We thank you for the privilege we have of reading your word, of coming closer to you each day. And we pray for Dennis as he teaches this marvelous subject about heaven. Thank you for your care. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, last Sunday I got through with class, and then when I got done, one of our class members asked that different ideas that people have about our eternal destiny be printed out and a handout. So I did that. And I just want to review something real quick that I missed last week, and so I want to make sure we get it done today. If you have your Bibles, you want to turn to Romans chapter 8 with me just real quick. And I'm going to just take less than 5 minutes, and then we'll turn this over to Dennis. You may recall that there was 3 views that we talked about last Sunday that are in our brotherhood toward where is our eternal destiny. And one of them is we're going to go to heaven. And that view is, as you see up there, is that our eternal reward will be in the glorious throne room of heaven, where we'll be singing praises and glorifying God forever. And it's a beautiful description it says there of that. Philippians chapter 3 verse 20 says that our citizenship is in heaven. And so that's where that's one of the main texts about that, according to this view, and many other texts that go along with that. And as I said, this handout sheet I'll give you will show the other text as well. Then there was the second view that we looked at last week, and that's in our brotherhood, and that's called the restored earth view. And according to that, when our eternal home will be with God and Jesus in the restored heaven and earth. So in other words, this earth that we're sitting on today and living on today will be purified and then restored. Now this is a verse I did not read last week, but to be fair with this view, I thought I needed to read it, and now my Bible just turned. Romans chapter 8 is one of the major verses that they used for this view. And so I want to read it for you I'm doing this in order to be fair with this idea. Starting with verse 18. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed in us. The creation waits in eager expectation for the sons of God to be revealed. For the creation is subject to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage of decay, or bondage to decay, and brought into the glorious freedom of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning as it is in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. Not only so, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption as sons and redemption of our bodies. For this hope we were saved. But the hope that has been seen is not hope at all. Who hopes for what is here already? But we hope for what we do not yet have. We wait for it patiently. So this is one of the major texts that is used to espouse that this earth is going to be restored. I'm not going to argue the cases for or against these. I'm just sharing with you what the views are. And then there's the third view, and that is there'll be a new heaven and a new earth. Now this view says that the new heaven and new earth is a blend of both the view of heaven and the view of the restored earth. The difference is that this earth here and this universe is not going to be restored. It's going to be completely burned up and done away with and go away. And in its place, God's going to create a new creation, a new heaven, a new earth. Just like in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is going to be after judgment. He's going to create a new heaven and a new earth. And there's where we would spend eternity. Now, what this new heaven and earth will look like, you go to Revelation chapter 21 and 22. And so in that section, starting with Revelation 21, let me just read that real quick. So this is the main text that this view takes. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. There was no longer any sea. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. So that is one of the main verses that this view takes. That's all I'm going to share with you about this. I think it may be a good idea someday down the line, I don't know how long, but maybe a representative from each of these views can share why they believe this, their particular view. Dennis is going to share one of these views with us, and he'll explain that more. He has his book that he wrote some years back called Heaven, The Christian Journey into Eternity. He has several copies here. I'm going to let him talk about that in just a second, that if you want one, he'll tell you about that. So, without any further ado, we'll turn this over to Dennis. I made 10 copies. If you want a copy, raise your hand. Here you go. Back to those.
On the back of that paper, I think there's a pop quiz you have to fill out and turn in. Trying to figure all that out. Appreciate the opportunity to teach this class. I haven't taught this material in some time, many years. I have taught it several times, so I look forward to being able to teach it again, share it with you, the efforts of mine and understanding and answering a lot of the questions we have about eternity, the hereafter, where we'll go. Of course, everybody wants to know if we'll know each other, all those kind of things. But I want to start with 2 Timothy. This is Paul's final words, of course, to Timothy. He's facing execution in Rome. And he says in chapter 4 and verse 6, "For I'm already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come." It'll come for all of us. The time of our departure. It will come for all of us. So what then? Well, he says here, "I've fought the good fight. I've finished the course. I have kept the faith." Yes. Can I get a little more volume, please? Is this on here? Yeah, this is supposed to be on here. Testing 1, 2, 3. Yes. There are seats right down front. All right. So he says here, "In the future there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing." So here, and then he goes on to say in verse 18, "The Lord will rescue me from every evil day and bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom. To him be glory forever and ever." Paul was assured that at his departure he had a better life waiting for him. And he was had that tremendous assurance because of the life that he lived and because of the promises that were made to him. So I hope that this study will help give you that same assurance that Paul had, that same understanding that Paul had, that after our departure, there is waiting for us a crown of righteousness. Where will that be placed on our head? Well, we're going to find that out a little bit. What is the, we'll start off with this here. What is the greatest thing that you've ever done? What's the greatest thing you've ever done in your life? Maybe ask it this way. What is the greatest thing you think that the Lord has ever done with you? That's usually always my prayers. Lord, just use me. Take whatever talent I have and use me. Open doors and I'll walk through them. So what is the greatest way in which God has used you to impact others? So I've had a privilege of doing several things in my life, and I could probably answer that question in 2 or 3 different ways. But right at the top of the list, certainly one of those things, the greatest thing that I ever did was to write this book. And I want to tell you a little bit about this little book, how it came to be, so you'll understand that as we look at it and as we study it today and as we get into the lessons in the next several weeks. A lot of things you don't know about my life. I preached for 20 years, and then I needed a break. We were preaching in Florence, Alabama, and I decided I needed to get away from it. Preaching can be hard on you sometimes. A lot. It's a large congregation, you have a lot of pressures. And after 20 years, I was ready for a break. So I moved my family up here to Memphis, mainly go back to Memphis State to finish up my degree. All I have is an AA degree, and that's from my work at Freed-Hardeman. So I wanted to, now I had 2 years at Preston Road School of Preaching, so I had four years. But I wanted to finish up my degree. I thought that would be a good way to get away and to take a little break. So we moved here to Memphis, started worshiping at Highland Street. I went to school for a year and then dropped out. I guess I'm still registered as a senior at University of Memphis, I think. So never finished that because I had a family to feed and opportunities were presented to me, and I started doing okay in the secular world. So I didn't preach for 9 years. I did some preaching, here and there by appointment. I preached a few times at Highland Street when Harold Schenck would need to go somewhere. He would ask me to preach. As a matter of fact, I think I preached one of the last sermons at the old Highland Street building. But I started preaching. I wanted to go back to preaching, and I had a good job, but I started preaching just on Sundays, and a church up in Weakley County hired me, and So we did that every Sunday. So for 4 years, in addition to putting in my 40 hours at work, every Sunday morning I drove 137.4 miles every Sunday to preach, teach a class, run around with the brethren on Sunday afternoon, preach Sunday night, and then drive home. About a 14-hour day every Sunday for 4 years. I like the hard stuff. I like, anybody can just, come preach one little sermon and be done for the week, So I did that, and then after 4 years, I started preaching at Oakland, preached out at Oakland for a couple of years. So I went back to teaching a class at Highland Street, and on Sunday night we would worship with my mom and dad who are at Quail Ridge. Some of you are old Quail Ridge people. We'd go on Sunday night over and worship mom and dad at Quail Ridge. And after that we'd go to Dairy Queen and stuff like that. So I had this time when I wasn't preaching on Sundays, but I love studying my Bible. I mean, I've grown up since I was 10, 11 years old studying my Bible. Right after I was baptized, I was 11 years old, and one of the first things I wanted to do was I told my mom I wanted to serve as a deacon. And Mom kind of bust my bubble there that I had to be married first, so. But I always studied my Bible, always loved to study my Bible. So I decided I was going to pick a subject and just study that subject for a year and probably teach that subject in the TLC class I was teaching at Highland. So I'm trying to figure out what to preach on. So I went to church that Sunday night, and the preacher he would always put an outline of his sermons, Sunday morning, Sunday night, in the bulletin. So I had his sermon Sunday morning was I Know I Can, and then Sunday night that I went to, it was Who Will Be in Heaven? And so he was preaching on heaven. I was thinking, well, that's a good subject for me to study. I want to study then heaven. And so this is the original thing. I actually began to write, as the preacher was preaching, little notes of things that I wanted to write about. Is heaven a city or a state? The heaven in a reality, is it a new place? John 14. What will we be has not yet been made known, 1 John 3. So I began to think about then this subject of heaven that I wanted to study. So I began studying that and began teaching it. I have my folder here that I used. Here are the lessons that I began to do. I sit down and I wrote out kind of the topics that I wanted to study here. Spiritual geography, Abraham's bosom, Jesus' return, New Jerusalem, our new body. And if you look, those of you that have the book, that's pretty well the table of contents in the book. I wrote those down and began to study and to teach this at Highland Street. I haven't even looked at this in a long time. I can probably use this some as I'm doing it, but I just had the outline of what I would teach on Sunday morning about heaven here. Spiritual geography, we'll probably get into that next Lord's Day. So these are the lessons that I taught. And then I went over well, and I was asked, Alan Black asked me if I'd teach another, they had several adult classes, so another class wanted me to teach it. So I decided this time that I would, for each lesson, I kind of write something out and be able to hand something out like Joe does so good, hand something out as I begin to study. So I started writing then the first lesson and then the second lesson and third lesson. As I was going along writing, I said, this is turning into, pretty good little job and pretty good. Maybe it's something that, possibly I could print off and would be be worthwhile. So I began to look at that and to see if there was maybe some future in printing it out in some way. So several nights a week, I would come home from my work. I was working with Jay Shapley. Any of y'all know Jay? He was an elder at Highland for years. Worked for Jay Shapley at his photography studio. I was head photographer there for about 11 years. I probably took some of your grandkids' pictures. They went to school in the county. But so that's what I was doing while I was preaching on Sundays, and then while I was preparing this material. So I would come in at night and sit around the dinner table and my laptop and just start writing this. Now, I said that, you know, we all have gifts. And it took me a long time to understand that I had the ability to put a sentence together. And I was not new at this. I had published a little book about our deaf work that we did. I worked at Basil Overton with the World Evangelist for a few years, and so I wasn't a novice writer, I guess is what I'm saying. So I started, you know, writing this material and thought it was coming out pretty good. During that time, our daughter, Candy, moved back in with us. Her and her lab dog moved back. She wanted to go back to school, so she moved back in with us. I remember one night they were in the living room, her and my wife, and I'm at the dinner table, you know, working on this material. I just remember hearing Candy say one night to Kathy, "What is Dad doing over there?" You know, just every night I'm over there working on this stuff. And I never said anything about it. Never told anybody what I was doing. I just was, you know, working away on my laptop. And I did that several times. When we go on vacation, Kathy and I would go on our spring break together. I didn't get summer breaks, and so we would go during her spring breaks. The poem that's in the book I wrote on the beach in Gulf Shores, I think. So anywhere I would go, I remember taking a trip or two and taking my laptop with me in the motel room. I'd get up that morning and would just keep writing. So I just stayed at it. It's 12 lessons and kept at it. And so finally, I had it all done. Ran it off, went to, you know, Office Max and got it printed off, all the pages, bound in a little spiral binding. And I didn't know just what to do with it. So I asked Harold Schenck and Chris Altrop, who were the ministers at Highland Street. I wanted to meet with them one day, one afternoon in their office. Now, up until this time, I don't even think Kathy knew what all I was doing either. So I met with Harold in his office, and I had 2 copies of the material, and I said, I don't know if this is worth trying to get it published or not. Would you just take it, read it, make a few notes, and let me know what you think? And so they were pleased by getting that manuscript, and it took them about a month to both of them to read through it, and you know, Harold had a lot of red ink, you know, where he made notes and stuff about it. So when he finished, we met again, and Harold said, I think this is good. Now, Harold had just had maybe his second book printed by 21st Century Christian in Nashville. So he knew people over there. Now, one of the hardest things in the world to get done is to get a book published by a publisher. Now, today, self-publishing is very popular, and anybody can publish a book. And I've had one little book that I self-published through a company like that, and it goes okay. It goes pretty good. We're trying to get a publisher to actually take your manuscript, put their money behind editing it, developing the material, laying it out, printing it, and all that. It's a pretty hard process to get that done. It's my sister's been trying to have some manuscripts printed for years and just can't get it done. It's hard to be published in that way unless you're a well-known figure or name or something, which I was not, of course. So Harold said he just had a book come out, and he knew the head guy at 21st Century, Barry Brewer. And he said, Dennis, just take your table of contents and pick a couple, about 2 chapters, and we'll send it to Barry. I'll put a note. I'll send it personally and with a little letter, and I'll send it to Barry and see if it can get straight to him, maybe. So we did that. We sent that to him. And Harold said, it may be a month, 6 weeks, maybe 2 months before you hear anything. Well, 2 weeks later, I had just got a haircut and was driving home and pulled out my phone, and it was a voicemail from Barry Brewer. And Barry said, when you can, call me. And I went just like that off the road, stopped, and I called Barry. And he said, we're very interested in your book. Send me the whole manuscript. I'd like to see it. So do that for me. I said, yes, I'd be glad to. So I was pretty excited to get that response so quick on the material. So I sent him the whole material over to him. Barry, at the time, timing is everything. In anything in life, timing is everything. Barry was suffering from cancer, and he was not in really, really good health. And I think this book touched him because he knew maybe what the end was going to be. So he got the whole manuscript and called me back and said, you got to do this, this, and this, and this. There were a lot of rewriting to do on certain things. I mentioned some names in the book, and he says, we can't use those names in the book because some members think that this guy's too liberal and they think this guy's too conservative. We can't do that. We try to sell books, to our whole brotherhood. Get those names out. I had quoted quite a bit of a song by John Lennon in the book called Imagine. And they say, we can't do that. We start getting into copyright things, and we can't get the copyrights to use that book, or we would have to pay a lot to Yoko, who has the copyrights to Imagine, I guess, still today. So you have to throw that out. So there are things like that I had to do and rewrite. So for the next several weeks, I'm rewriting the material and this, that, and the other. Another thing too, the first chapter in this book is it's very personal, very kind of biographical in the book. By the way, I dedicated this book to Jill and Candace and my grandson. And the first chapter is called Spiritually Bankrupt, Throwing in the Towel. I had not intended that material to be the first chapter. Matter of fact, I had just written a short introduction, kind of telling how I decided to write that material. And Harold Shank said, Dennis, I like that. You need to expand on that. I want more of that. And so with Harold's encouragement and also Barry Brewer's encouragement, that chapter is very biographical and kind of tells why I really wanted to get into this study and to look at it and study it. It's called The Spiritually Bankrupt. So I had to write that chapter and I still, you know, when you write something about yourself and sometimes kind of personal things about yourself and your journey, well, that's still in print now, 16, 17 years ago. It's still there, and it still gets shared with, you all will see and read that stuff, and you'll see a little bit about the journey that took me to this study. So I had to rewrite that, things and material. I sent it in. In the meantime, I went over to sign my contract with 21st Century. Went over and met with Barry and signed the contract for the book. I get a little bit of, royalties for the book, and I can buy them at cost and stuff like that. And in the contract, they get first rights to my next book, which they did do. So I did that and met Barry, and we had a very nice conversation about heaven. His health was not good, so I think that it just really, the material hit him just the right way as far as comforting him and preparing him for what he knew was the end. And so we talked about different things about heaven. Barry, after the book was published, maybe 3 or 4 months later, he died. And so I think this was the last book that he worked on. But the book was printed. They did 2,000 copies, first of all, and I started doing book signings around. I wasn't preaching every Sunday, so I could go and do some book signings, and did that. And we sold out, the first 2,000 sold out fairly quick. So they did another 2,000, a second printing, and I think, no, here, let me see here. Great last chapter, Dying, It's Really Living. Yeah, okay, and these books that you'll get, it's an appendix to the second printing, and so they had a few extra pages, and I was able to tell a little bit about some of the things that was going on with the book, and so you'll have that in there. So the book came out, and I was pleased with certainly how it was going. I was invited, I mentioned it there, to speak at 21st Century Christian would have a big luncheon at the David Lipscomb Bible Lectureship. They would always put on a big luncheon, and you bought tickets to the luncheon, and big fancy room and meal, and they would have a guest speaker of one of their later authors. So I was asked to speak at that luncheon. I always remember my opening comment is the first time somebody had to pay to hear me speak. So that was something kind of new. So I was able to do that. Had sit right next to Jim Bill McIntyre, and I met Barry's father. I'm trying to think of Barry's father's name. I can't see. Oh, here's something else was an interesting part of the book. When I was a student at Freed Hardeman, I wrote a term paper for Cecil N. Wright on the Restoration Movement. So I'm sitting in one of those swings one day on campus, sitting next to some, I'm sure, sweet attractive young lady. And H.A. Dixon comes walking by, the president of the college, and he's walking by and he sees me over there in the swing and he says, Dowdy, when you get a moment, could you come please see me in my office? So I walked her to the dorm, and then I went to his office, and the Cecil and Wright had given Brother Dixon a copy of my term paper on the Restoration Movement, and Brother Dixon thought it was really good, and he encouraged me. He said, you're a good writer, and I just want to encourage you to keep writing. And I think they ran the little paper in one of the school, publications or something. Maybe, I guess that's first time it was published, I guess. So when I got this manuscript together, H.A. Dixon's son, Alan, who many of you know, Alan Dixon. Alan lived 2 doors down from me for many, many years. So I went down to Alan, I told him that story about his dad. He encouraged me to write, and I said, now I'd like for you to read this manuscript. So I had 2 Dixons to read it, and Alan was very pleased with it. And by the way, Alan, bless his heart, he was a big promoter of this book when we got it in print. And for years, he would ask me for copies, and he would share them with his family. And he was just good in sharing and promoting this little book. And so that was always kind of a neat thing to me to have Brother Dixon continue that sort of tradition. So we got the book published, and I began to get out there a little bit. I cannot tell you, and I think this is the greatest thing I've ever done. And I say that because the lives that this little book has touched. I just it does something to me when I hear these things, because of when you do something that affects other people at an important time in their life, it just makes you feel, I don't know how it makes you feel, but blessed to be honored to do this. Not long after it came out, there was a family at Highland Street that had moved from Highland Street over to Germantown, and the husband died, and maybe one of the first real requests I got, she wanted copies to give out at his funeral to all her kids and grandkids, and I signed 7 or 8 books, and she did that, and I thought, well, that's very, very nice. I appreciate them doing that. Barry's dad, and that's in the appendix, and I can't call his dad's first name now for some reason, was a big supporter of the book. He told me at that luncheon, he came up to me and said, I keep your book right by my bedside, and I read from it all the time, and just appreciate it and thank me for the book. And so I get a call one day from 21st Century, and so this was after Barry had died. And they said, Dennis, Barry's dad, Brother Brewer, he wants to give some signed copies to all his family. Can you come over here sometime and sign some? And I said, yeah. So a couple weeks later, I went over to 21st Century in Nashville, of course. And I sit there and I signed about 8 or 10 books for Barry's family and gave those out, and I signed several other books. 21st Century has a shelf of books. You can buy signed books if you want to. If they have the book, they have all the books in that particular shelf have been signed by the authors, if you want to get a signed copy. So I signed some, and those were put on that particular shelf. Of course, 21st Century, they exist mainly to provide Bible school material. And so this is set up 12 lessons, and then it has discussion questions at the end of every chapter, discussion questions. So this was designed to be taught. That's how 21st Century does. Everything is designed to be class material. So there's every chapter has that, and I didn't do the questions. It's interesting that when I was asked about that, Harold said that his wife could do that for me. She had read the book too, and going to. So Alan's wife, I can't think of her name right now. Having a senior moment. Huh? No, Harold Shank's wife. What's Harold's wife? Sally. Yeah, Sally Shank. So Sally did all the discussion questions for the chapter, so she got really involved. And of course, Harold wrote the introduction to it. Harold wrote that introduction, very, very well done by Harold. So, and let's see, I think I've got Dale Jenkins. Alan Dixon actually wrote a little blurb that's on the back of the book. So those people got involved in the book. I have to tell you this then about when you got the manuscript in, Barry, they always have somebody that either in their company or that they pay to read a manuscript and to make suggestions whether they think it's worth printing or not. So they had given my manuscript to someone, a preacher in the area, to read it and to tell them what he thought about it. So they did that, and the man read it, and he wrote a really nice review of the book. Said some really, really nice things. I won't read them to you, but there were some really nice things he said about the book, and that helped speed up, I guess, the process of getting it printed. After the book was printed, and several months later, Barry sends me the letter that preacher wrote about the book. And they wouldn't tell me who did it all a long time. They wouldn't tell me who reviewed it, who did it. The letter was written by Dale Jenkins. Now, many of you do not know Dale, but his father, Jerry Jenkins, preached in Birmingham, and when I was preaching with the same congregation, I worked with the Woodlawn congregation with Jerry. Dale was just a teenager then. And so here was this connection that I had that really surprised me, that Dale ended up being the guy that reviewed and gave a positive review about my manuscript. So that was an interesting connection, and Dale had me, come to where he was preaching at the time and do a book signing and stuff. He's been very nice. So he's got a blurb on the back of the book as well. So just some interesting tie-ins there with the book. It's hard to express how this book has grown. I don't know how many letters, emails I've gotten, people that have told me that they got the book and had it put in their church library in memory of a loved one that had passed away. There's hundreds of these books in church libraries, trust me, because I would get email and letters, just very touching letters. One lady wrote and told me how her husband was dying, how she would sit by his bed at night and read my book. Well, when you hear stuff like that, it's like, wow, that's really, really touching. When I was preaching in Tunica, there was a family down on in Gulf Shores, Fairhope. I lived in Fairhope in the Gulf Shores area, that supported me in Tunica. Just an older family. They were from the Memphis area, but they supported me for years. So I go down and I end up getting there on a Wednesday, and I go to church with them on Wednesday night. I don't even think they ever had the book, I don't think. So we go to their congregation and we go to a class, and the class has some long tables and the teacher's teaching, and I'm sitting there kind of across from a little older lady, and I'm sitting there as the teacher's going. I'm looking and glancing over at the nice lady, and she's got a couple books on her Bible, and she's reading. And I'm glancing down, and it's my book that she had with her. And so I got to meet her and talk to her afterwards, and her husband had died, and that book she said, I keep it with me all the time, and it's a great comfort to me. Things like that, just you don't know how this book touches people's lives. I got an email from the ladies' class at the Rockvale congregation. Rockvale is in the Murfreesboro area, Tennessee, just outside of Murfreesboro, Rockvale. And this lady teaches the ladies' Bible class. And so she wrote me, and she just told me how much the ladies enjoyed that studying the book, and what it meant to them, and how they enjoyed studying it, which was very nice. I replied, and I thanked her, and it was good. About 2 weeks later, maybe, I get another email from her. And believe me, this really kind of got to me. I don't know, at several levels. But they'd finished the book, and so she asked the ladies, what do you want to study next? And they said, we want to go back through and study Dennis's book again. And I thought, wow, that's not many people want to study the same book twice. I mean, usually one to plenty, but to go back through and study it twice. And I would end up going over there and thanking those ladies and signing books, and they supported my work in Tunica. Ended up for a few years. So that was pretty special about the book. So there are things like that just really amazes me about this little book. And it all goes back to this. It's something that every Christian thinks about and wonders about. When I started this study, there's no bibliography in this book. In other words, you list your sources and books, other books you studied and compared and got it. There's no, my other book, I've got a bibliography that long in it. It's called Road to the Upper Room, by the way. But this book, there's no bibliography because I did not use anybody's. I hadn't read anything else that anybody ever wrote about heaven. I said, I'm going to just sit down and I'm going to study the book, do what I do best, study my Bible, and find the answers and write about that. So that's what I did. I know Joe's mentioned that there's different philosophies and things a little bit about heaven, and what you'll be studying in here is the true one about what the Bible tells us about heaven. Everybody has all these questions, and what I like to tell people that every question that you have in your head right now about heaven, the answer is there. The answer is there. Not, well, I'm pointing to that. Let's see. Let me make sure I'm pointing to the right thing. The answer is there. You think God would leave us in the dark about that which causes us to follow Him? Look, folks, if there was no heaven and there was no afterlife, what in the world are you doing here? Why are you here? It's the reason we're here. The resurrection, eternal life, a spiritual home, to be with loved ones that are departed. That's the whole kit and caboodle right there. That's why we're here. There's no other reason any more important than that. So we try to be the best that we can be here. We do good deeds. We follow in Jesus' teachings. We try to be good to our neighbors. We study his parables. We want to be as good as we can be, and you know, we're baptized into Christ, and we begin to serve him for only one reason. Because we want to go to heaven. If you don't want to go to heaven, why are you here? So that's it. And when people lose a loved one, there's this natural, keen interest in where that loved one is and what's going on with them. I'll try to tell you this. Y'all know we've lost a dear friend in our family. And my daughter, bless her heart, she, took care of Dave for 9 or 10 months. Saw him through every pain and agony that he went through, and just did everything she could to comfort him and to take care of him. And 3 weeks ago, she was asking me, and she said, I just want to know if my husband is okay. That's the thing we want to know, isn't it? That our loved ones are okay. That there's a better place to go. That they're not in pain anymore. And that in this new place we'll never have to face death ever again. That's what we want to know, that there really is a place like that. And I think that's what this little book shares with us and gives us the faith that we have, that there is a place called heaven. And we'll be joined with their loved ones, and we'll find out as we study along. Will we recognize them, and who will be there, and how do you get there? We're going to look at all that. I think one of the things about this book that I always think is the greatest, even if I did put it together, I think it's the greatest table of contents that any book has. I want to just read you, this is what we'll be studying. If you have the book, you know about it. Spiritual bankrupt, throwing in the towel, that's the first chapter. Spiritual geography, we'll do that next Sunday. Where is heaven? Where is it? Third chapter, Abraham's bosom, heaven's waiting room. Very important chapter. Jesus' return, heaven's homecoming. We'll talk about how all that takes place. New Jerusalem. Oh, Zion, Zion, we will see all about that. Living in tents, longing for heaven, how we develop this desire for heaven. Our resurrected body designed for eternal living. What kind of body will we have, 9 to 5, what will we do in heaven? We'll be up there for eternity. When we've been there 10,000 years, we sang, we have no less years than when we first begun. We'll be up there a long time. Eternity is kind of a long time. What are we going to do up there? What are you going to do? The church, a little bit of heaven on earth. Gehenna. Heaven's only alternative. How do I get to heaven? Who will we see there? And then final dying. It's really living. But how we face death. So those are the topics we'll be looking at. Now let me tell you this quickly. I know Joe had told me to order 15 books and have 15 books here today, and so I called 21st Century and said, Dennis, we don't have 15 books on the shelf. We've got 5 books on the shelf, and we've got one back in our archive room that we'll take, and then we've got one we'll take off the sign shelf. So one of these books is already signed. So I've got 6 books. 2 have already got your books. We'll hopefully have the other books here next Sunday for you. So if you have a $10 bill, you're welcome to take one of these books with you. Just let me know. Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll see you next Lord's Day.
I don't have a $10 bill, but I have 10 million.
It'll be fine. Yeah, just count them out. Turn me off.